Good evening. Welcome to the May 3rd, 2017 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. First up tonight is the approval of our minutes from April 19th. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes from the April 19th, 2017 regular session.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next up is our record plat agenda, and there are two tonight. Any questions on those?
No.
No? That's for RP-7385-2016 and RP-7566-2017. Trudy, did you want to introduce anything more about them?
No, they're all been reviewed and ready for your approval.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move we approve the two record plats as read into the record.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. And then next we have a consent agenda, and there's one item on that for AFP-7588-2017, the Chelsea Apartments at 12 South Frederick Avenue in the CD zone, corridor development zone. This is the addition of two multi-family units, and it's an amendment to final site plan. Are there any questions on the consent agenda?
No.
All right, is there a motion, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent items as read into the record.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, site plan agenda. And there's one item tonight for AFP-7584-2017, Carvana at 15710 Shady Grove Road in the MXD mixed-use development zone. It's for the sign package and an amendment to the building elevations. And presenting from staff is Jasmine Forbes. Good evening, Jasmine.
Good evening. Staff is before you tonight to present amendment to final site plan application AFP-7584-17. The subject property is located at 15710 Shady Grove Road in the zone MXD. The applicant this evening is requesting approval for the Carvana sign package and a minor amendment to the car display tower elevations.
Okay.
So this application comes before the Planning Commission in accordance to Section 172A, which requires the Planning Commission to grant amendments to approved final site plans. This application also comes in accordance to Section 24-212, subsection B3, which requires all automobile signs to be approved by the Planning Commission. And lastly, this application comes in accordance with Section 24-212J, because one of the signs includes an icon, which is also required approval from the Planning Commission. Staff wants to note that this application will satisfy one of the conditions that was issued during final site plan approval for Carvana. And I would like to introduce to Chris Rulin.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Chris Rulin with the law firm of Lord Charlie & Brewer, and with me tonight is Vanessa McDonald, who is the entitlement manager with Carvana. And we are very pleased to be back here again for what is really the last step in this approval process. Just on the drive over, I was thinking about last fall being out at the site and getting ready to submit the applications, and we're very close now and very happy to be at this point.
Great.
Just one quick note. Although tonight's application is really postured as a final site plan amendment, there really hasn't been anything that's changed with respect to the project that you previously reviewed. It's here just tonight for the limited purpose of showing you the final details for the sign package that's proposed for the fulfillment center use.
Sure.
And so with that, we do have some slides just to briefly reorient you, and I know at this point the site is probably becoming familiar and the existing use is probably becoming familiar, but we will go through it again very quickly. We consist of approximately 2.49 acres located northeast of I-270, the on-ramp where it intersects with Shady Grove Road. The property is the site of the former Bugaboo Steakhouse. We have been here twice back in December to do a schematic development plan amendment to allow for the Carvana use, and I believe our hearing on the final site plan was back in the beginning of February.
Mm-hmm.
There is a closer view of the site. It's surrounded by, the property is in the MXD zone, and it's surrounded by commercial development, but this is that little area where the municipal boundaries are kind of irregular and sort of jut down to capture the property. But the other surrounding properties are actually to the front where Shady Grove Road are actually in the county's jurisdiction. This is an image of the site plan as was previously approved. The site plan, as I just mentioned, stays the same as before. The changes that we are here for tonight were really just with respect to updating the elevation sheets. They're hard to see here. We have a better rendering, but you can see the Carvana signage is proposed on the octagonal tower, and down on the lower elevation you can see one sign that's proposed at the end of the delivery bay. So eight signs on each of the tower facades, and then one at the end of the delivery bay. And we've got some detail sheets. This is a location, aerial location, showing you the placement on the tower. The circle on the end of the delivery bay is the next sign. The blue bands are border tubing that's on the building that are not really part of the sign package. The rendering is prepared by the same consultant, so they had it all in one exhibit. More specifically, that's the proposed lettering details and the Carvana logo. It sort of alternates between Carvana, the words, and then the logo, and then the words all the way around the tower. And that is the logo. It's almost a canopy sign that's attached to the end of the delivery bay. You can see it there in the bottom corner. And again, just the placement from above, if you will. And that is the rendering of the facility. So the signs really have been designed to sort of complement the kind of modern aesthetic of this, the glass curtain wall system that's being used around the tower, and to really brand this so that it carries Carvana's logo and it's consistent with their other facilities that they've been building.
If I can jump in for
Sure.
just a moment.
Sure, sure.
Sorry, Chris, and this is Vanessa McDonald with Carvana. What you're looking at there is actually a photograph of our recently completed Houston facility. So that is an actual photograph that you're looking at. So that's how this facility will look once it's built out. The primary difference and the main difference between the elevations that you really couldn't discern on the drawings is at the top of the tower. In Houston and in other locations, we have 2 neon bands with the lettering in between. Here in Gaithersburg, we're losing that bottom band. So we still get to accentuate the architecture of the building, across the top. But when we tried to use both bands, that created a signage issue with size and stuff. So we simply removed that. So this is what you're going to see at this location.
Absent the lower band.
Absent the lower band on the top of the tower.
And this slide is really, I don't expect you to be able to really see it from there, the details, but what this is showing is sort of a tabulation. The ordinance for these signs requires no more than 10% of sign area coverage on the building facade that's holding the sign. And it also requires that any individual sign be no greater than 100 square feet. This is a tabulation showing, elevation by elevation, that all of the signage is well below the 10%. I think the greatest coverage is 3 or 4%, and the area is well below 100 square feet for every sign. So all of the signs meet the zoning requirements. The final piece that you should be aware of is the language of that section for wall signs really also says that signage is limited to the sides of the building that face a public street or have a public entrance unless otherwise approved by the commission. Here we do have a couple of signs that could be argued to not face a public street as they wrap around the tower. The verticality of the tower actually does make it so that many of those I think actually could be visible from the rights-of-way. But in any event, the Planning Commission has jurisdiction to approve those locations. In this case, I actually think it's justified primarily by the lack of frontage on Shady Grove Road and the fact that this property is set back away from the road and surrounded by other commercial development. There are private driveways that go through that area and provide connectivity that almost function like streets back in that commercial development. And having the signs as they're placed allows for some of the wayfinding function that we know that you all were looking for with the sign program. So So that's really it for our presentation.
Maybe just to finish on that comment and just to refresh our memory and orientation,
Yeah.
would you put the site plan back up, please?
Sure. Would the site plan be most helpful, or the?
It's probably more of an area plan like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, arguably, you've got two sides facing 270, two sides facing back to Shady Grove Road, or to whatever the relationship of Shady Grove and the interchange is. When you bring that up, and it's something I just was thinking about in reviewing the packet, the northeast facing sign, which essentially is over top of the low-rise part of the building, it's up on the tower, but it's on the back side of that.
Right.
That's the only one that seems suspiciously extraneous, you know, given the orientation of approaching the building, where your customers are really going to find it from. But I don't really know, you know, if you get down on the ground, if that actually ends up being a valuable frontage for you. I don't really.
Yeah, when you go back to kind of how the development is situated, and again, that one is the one that really is mostly most oriented not towards the road.
Right.
But it does face kind of the adjacent commercial directly, so that if you were, you know, back in this area and you were looking towards the facility, I think that actually probably is the one you would see from the side.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not a
Go
quick
ahead.
question. Please refresh my memory. Didn't we ask the question, was there going to be signage right at Shady Grove Road?
Yeah, that's a very good
Yeah.
question. That is the, and I guess this is the closest we get to it. That's the sign. There's an existing sign out there
Yeah, for Bugaboo Creek.
for
right?
Bugaboo.
Yeah.
That's like in front
Right.
of the Red Lobster,
Mhm.
close to the driveway. And that sign is actually located off-site,
Right.
outside of the boundaries of our
Right.
property. So there's a prohibition, both in the city code and in the county zoning ordinance
Okay.
against off-site signage. We actually did go and speak to the county about that, though, just to try to find out if there was any ability to utilize this signage. And the reviewer at the Department of Permitting Services that handles that basically said we would be so limited in our ability. Basically, the starting point for that is it would be a non-conforming sign because you wouldn't be allowed to do it today.
Okay.
But we would be so limited in our ability to make changes to that we really should just consider it sort of a, you know, he thinks it's a non-starter.
Okay. All right. I knew we had, and I
Well,
know
you
where that
could
ended.
incorporate a moose in your logo, you know.
Yeah. Brand company.
The Carvana moves.
But then we'd have two icons. I don't think that's what happened.
Oh,
The moose can drive the car.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I
Go
guess
ahead.
my question is, I think, a little bit more for staff, Jasmine. The issue with the second blue band being counted as part of the sign or throwing off the sign area calculation. Could you explain sort of the thinking behind that and the because just to me, from looking at it, it looks like a building element. It looks like building lighting. So I was just curious in seeing that as a reason for eliminating it.
Yep, so when we were looking at the building elevations, we noticed that the two blue tubings it's actually framing the Carvana signage, and it's kind of bringing attention when we think of signage. So in our definition, we have to include the space in between the decoration in our calculation. So if we did do that, it would put them over the 100 square foot and the 10%
And it's a
requirement.
delicate balance too. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how much we want to see buildings lit up along there that, you know, enough is enough, maybe, but it seems like a reasonable way to.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. It just caught me a little off guard, but that makes sense.
I mean, the thing is going to glow. It's going to be internally illuminated
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
sparkly and shiny and all that.
Can
we
we-
like shiny things.
Can we step back and can I ask about the tree, tree coverage? There won't be any, I know we talked about this before, but you're not gonna remove any trees or any coverage?
I don't recall if any trees are being removed with this, but I do know that they are, and our engineer isn't with us tonight. Maybe staff remembers the details, but they are adding afforestation to the site because they're
Right.
basically eliminating the majority of the existing parking lot.
Right.
Adding plantings, adding green area, adding stormwater. I don't know if anything is coming out in connection with that work, in terms of how they construct it, but I do know that the end state is that there are substantially more trees and plantings on the property that exist today. And the, I think the green area percentage
30-something?
goes from, I have it,
So if you look at the site
Screen.
plan, so what they're doing is they're moving, increasing more green space over here, so they're
Yeah.
putting some trees over here.
Okay.
So they're
Yeah.
increasing the amount of green space.
so,
that
yeah,
they're doing now.
the impervious surface is reduced by 22,000 square feet and change, and the green area increases by 9.3%.
Okay.
And there are a bunch of tree plantings in that area right now.
Yeah.
And there may be a little bit wasn't there some off-site stormwater that might be, there are some trees between the highway and the
Right,
site.
right,
And I
exactly.
couldn't remember if any of the stormwater features bringing the pipes through might require a few removals.
Yeah,
So-
if that's
Okay.
happening, that's the
Right.
area that I think is potentially affected by that.
Right.
Yeah, but, okay, I just want to make sure we weren't going to bust saw a
No.
bunch of trees.
Yeah.
Gonna plow up a lot of asphalt, that's a
Right,
good thing.
yeah.
Mhm.
Good. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. I'll note for the record that it doesn't appear there's anyone in the audience here to comment on this application. So, let's go to the recommendation, please, Jasmine.
So staff recommends that the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings and recommendation, grant AFP-7584 -717 Carvana finding a compliance with section 24-170, 24-172A, and section 24-212 of the city code with no conditions.
Good. So icon, obviously, we're approving specifically, but we don't have to approve the signage except that it was a condition on the site plan, is that right?
It's required by
Yeah.
code.
Yeah. All automobile signage is required to be approved by planning commission.
Yeah.
Even within the confines of the limits and square footage?
Yeah.
Okay.
and- yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's true. I thought of that. This is an automotive place. So, the issue of, I guess what I'm kind of backing into is if we're going to discuss the point about it not, the guideline that says that a sign needs to confront a street and this doesn't, clearly there's an argument to be made, and I think a reasonable one, that it's confronting all of the streets that it could confront, even though it's not technically on those streets. So it makes sense the way it's oriented to peek up above the other buildings and face 270, face Shady Grove, face the internal road for the development or the rest of the commercial. That seems to all make sense, even if it's not technically on confronting a street. Is that what needs to be said in the record? Is that what we're talking about? Do you think is that?
I think that covers it.
Yeah. Okay.
And there does not need to be a separate motion because it's not a waiver of the
I was gonna say, it doesn't-
requirements. The actual requirements allow the planning commission to do that.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think the icon's pretty straightforward and consistent with what we would expect from any branded business. Right? Any concerns with?
No, I mean, I don't have any concerns. I think, given the height of the building, I think the signs facing 270 and facing on all the facades make sort of logical,
Yeah.
common sense.
Yeah, no,
Good.
not at all.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to tell legitimately where their front door is, right? Because it's sort of this
Right.
landlocked little interior site, so it makes some sense. Okay, good. So if there aren't any further concerns, we're ready for motion, I think.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move that the planning commission, based on the exhibits submitted, applicant's testimony, and the staff report's findings and recommendations, grant AFP 7584-2017 amendment to final site plan finding it in compliance with section 24-170, 24-172A, and 24-212 of the city code with no conditions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you
you.
very
When-
much.
when
It's been
do
a
you,
pleasure to come here.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to know, because every hearing I've been asked, when are you going to start this project? We have our building plans in, and we're ready to pull permits. We've been capping utilities
Great.
so that we can get going.
Excellent. Right.
Good.
Look forward to it. Good luck.
Thank you very much. And
Thank
thank
you.
you to staff. Everyone here has been such a pleasure to work with.
They're great, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. Thank you.
Make us
Thank
good
you.
too. right, thanks all. That takes us to, from the commission, Phil, can I start with you, please?
I guess I don't really have anything other than I know the book festival's coming up in a couple weeks. So I'd like to see everybody come out and support that event. It's a great one.
Absolutely, great point. And I should say for the record, Miriam, I know you'll catch it in the minutes, but for any recordings that are being made, Phil Wessel is joining us on the dais and participating this evening in all things because not all commissioners are present, so if anybody's listening for that, that's the case here. Just to cover all our bases, right?
You're fine.
Danny, anything tonight?
Nothing. Phil covered it for me about the festival, so thank you, Phil.
Yeah, and I'll echo that because I think we're all planning to be there and have some small part in it, if not larger part. I know, Danny, you've worked a lot on the thing, right? I did want to bring up one quick thing. I know, and I was going to thank Rizali publicly, but she wasn't able to make it tonight, for yet another really interesting forum that the Kentlands Foundation put on about revitalization strategy, specifically for Main Street. But the panelists that came in with expertise from work that was done in Frederick, in Adams Morgan, and I'm going to draw a blank on the third one. Rockville, yes, Rockville. Really painted a great picture on all the opportunities and sort of the hurdles that they went through in getting their respective projects done. What struck me is even though it opened as on the premise that it was going to help with some of the Main Street questions that the neighbors are having, it sure looked and felt an awful lot like information and expertise we could apply to Old Town. So I don't know what opportunity we have to influence some of the work going on there, but maybe use some of the same information or same expertise and kind of dovetail it a bit, because I know it's there was a lot of relevant discussion I think that could go to what we're hoping will happen in Old Town over time, right? But if she's listening, congratulations on another event, and keep it coming.
Do we know if that was recorded? And I know they were
That
going to
was
try.
not recorded, unfortunately.
Okay. Although we might have access to the presentations that were given, I'm not sure. In PowerPoint form or
Maybe
whatever.
she does have
Yeah.
those.
Okay. Good. All right. Which side are we going here?
Just so everyone know, next meeting's May 17th, and the NIST Master Plan and NEPA meeting is scheduled for May 11th, and that's at 9700 Great Seneca Highway.
Are there any headlines from that? I mean, are there big plans expected, or is it an incremental thing, or does anybody have any idea?
They're trying to continue to make the site a little bit more secure. So they are talking about an actual inspection site for trucks, which they don't have right now, area off of Muddy Branch Road, and I would say that's the big part.
Mm-hmm.
They are in the midst of being recognized by the National Historic Trust.
Oh, really?
As far as a facility, government facility.
Yeah.
And so they also have to go through that process for any additions.
And there was a proposal on the table for some bike paths that would go past the property on actually both sides. I think the 270 side and the Quince Orchard Road side, right?
We're in the midst of negotiating that. That's really not
That's not
part
their
of the
project,
master
but-
plan.
Yeah.
but,
Okay.
But the city and the state and NIST are almost, if not, they might have already signed their agreement. I don't know. Do you have?
I don't know right off.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So.
Great.
Seemed imminent.
Yes.
Great. Thanks. Okay.
That's all I have.
That's all. Okay. Anything on this side?
I have nothing.
No. All
Trudy,
right.
No, nothing
What?
from Trudy? What?
All right. If not, have a good evening, and we're adjourned.